Om Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakam, Namo Namaha, Jai Ganesha. Om Vakrutundaya Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprabha, Nirvignam Kurume Deva, Sarvakareshu Sarvada, Mushika Vahanamo Dakahasta, Chamarakarana Vilambita Sutra, Vamana Rupa Maheshvara Putra, Vigna Vinayaka, Pada Namaskar, Vigna Vinayaka, Mahaganapati, the foundational deity for all Hindus. And he's known popularly as the remover of obstacles, but how? Through aggression? No. Through humility. Vinaya, Vigna Vinayaka. So to Hindus, Ganesha represents joy and laughter and contentment, Santoshima, his big belly. He's chock full of symbolism from his very form of animal, human, divine. This is the form of yours and mine. And his Vilambita Sutra, his beautiful trunk, which reminds us of three things: to be strong and flexible and sensitive. And then life is sweet. Notice the trunk goes to the laddu. Because think of the opposite. If we're weak, inflexible, insensitive, life won't be sweet. It'll be sour for us and those around us. His one broken tusk is from a story of writing the Vedas. It shows humility and a wonderful intellectual study also, writing the Vedas. His gata and pasa, the mace, if you will, and then the rope on the other hand, reminds us of the wisdom of learning what to let go of, what to hold on to. And here he has both feet kind of up, but often it'll be 1 foot up, 1 foot down, reminding us to keep 1 foot in the world, take care of business in the world, prakriti. This is a good balance. And then the other foot up into the Atmana. And as a son of Shiva, he also has a Nag Devata, a snake around his belly. There's a cute story about that. That his belly burst open from eating too many laddus. And the moon laughed at him. And he broke his tusk and threw it up at the moon. That's why we have the crescent moon. It's all symbolic stories. He brings a great sense of laughter. And then he found a snake to hold his belly together. So beautiful Ganesha has so much powerful wisdom that we need to listen to, hence his big ears, Gajaganakaya. And the elephants are very sacred to Hindus. They work very well with humans. The Mahuts live with them. They bathe them, take care of them. In some of the major mandirs in India, you must pass through the elephant before you go inside, and he blesses you. Puts that large trunk on your head, making you bow. Humility, sharanam, taking refuge in the divine. So in life, there's a time for being assertive, stating your case, standing up for the dharma, entering into confrontations with others. And sometimes we are being accused of being too over-confrontational, but there's a balance there. We also recognize the wisdom of humility. That's Ganesha's foundation. It's also the first chakra, Muladhara chakra, the root chakra. And it's also associated with memory. Never forget who you are, Tattvamasi. And it's from this foundation then we rise into the other devatas, into the other states of consciousness, if you will. Literally rising up through the body, from the root chakra at the anal region, up the body to the top of the head. So all of the deities, the symbolism, the chakras, are actually what is happening inside of us as human beings. So humility, remember, is wisdom. It's not being humiliated. Sometimes we confuse the two. But humility is wisdom. And wisdom is the ability to discern difference, discrimination, vivek. We recognize what's true, what's false. So let's look at an essay entitled Humility Now. History has a pattern. Certainty often arises, and power then aligns with it. Dissent is dismissed. Harm occurs. Then comes denial. Then comes concealment. Then comes the slow erosion of trust. And decades, sometimes centuries later, come the memorial. For example, in 1692, during the Salem witch trials, fear hardened into conviction. How pure were the Puritans? 19 people were hanged. Giles Corey, 81 years old, was pressed to death. Dozens were imprisoned. The executions occurred in 1692. The Salem witch trials memorial was dedicated in 1992, 300 years later. Humility arrived, but late. Slavery in America legally ended in 1865. Yet full national reckoning, museums, major memorials, broad acknowledgement, unfolded generations later. Recognition came, but after the victims were long gone. Indigenous communities endured forced displacement, boarding schools, and cultural erasure. Divorcing yoga from Hinduism, still going on today. Formal apologies came slowly. Again, harm now, humility later. We need to flip the script. Humility now. History teaches us something very sobering. It is often not the initial wrongdoing that destroys us and destroys trust. It is the cover-up. The infamous Watergate was not merely a break-in, it was the concealment that forced a resignation. In the 1990s, controversy surrounding President Bill Clinton intensified, not simply by misconduct, but by blatant sworn denial. Trust collapses fastest when transparency disappears. Today, as in all ages, public frustration rises whenever investigations seem opaque or incomplete. In high-profile cases, including those surrounding Jeffrey Epstein and institutions connected to his crimes, the demand is simple: transparency. Opacity feeds distrust. On the other hand, humility requires openness and courage. What about AI? If humans distort data, conceal evidence, or sanitize history, then any system trained on that information inherits those distortions. No system, human or artificial, can transcend the integrity of its inputs. So here's the call. Not partisan, not ideological, a plea to leaders, to institutions, to developers, to citizens, to technologists, to teachers, to clergy, to governments, to those building the future. Choose humility now. Disclose early. Correct quickly. Admit error before exposure. Tell the truth before you are forced to. Do not wait for 300 years. Do not wait for the plague. Do not wait for the next generation to uncover what you concealed. In the age of AI, concealment does not just distort memory, it programs distortion forward. If we want intelligent systems to serve humanity, then humanity must serve the truth. Humility is wisdom before regret. Humility now. Why wait? Humility now is not serenity now. There's a well-known moment in Seinfeld where the phrase "serenity now" becomes a chant. The characters repeat it loudly, believing that by declaring calm, they will create it. But nothing is really examined, nothing is corrected, nothing is resolved. The frustration is simply buried. And what is buried eventually erupts. It's a comedy, but it's also a commentary on human behavior throughout the ages. Because we often do the same. We declare confidence instead of asking questions. We defend narratives instead of examining them. We protect identity instead of protecting truth. This is not serenity. This is suppression. Humility now is not suppression. It is not blind surrender. It is not weakness. It is not humiliation. It is not abandoning conviction. Humility is courage. The story of Ganesha standing up to protect the Dharma is one symbolic story of courage. He stood up to protect his Mataji Parvati. And in that scenario, what happened? He lost his head. It's kind of a gruesome story to many, but there's a powerful teaching lesson here. This youth was, and we all have to find our youthful loving warrior, no matter what the physical age. He stood up for principles. He stood up to protect his Mataji in this case, which could be symbolically protecting anything. Protecting your loved ones, protecting your religion, protecting your lifestyle, protecting yourself. Stand up. And when you do, of course, you will not win every time. But we must continue to stand up. And in this story, Ganesha gets then the head of an elephant, and forever he's known as probably one of the most popular deities in the world. Humility has the courage to say, we may have been wrong. The courage to investigate our own side. The courage to correct before exposure forces correction. History forces us to ask an uncomfortable question, or questions. If it took 300 years to memorialize the victims of the Salem witch trials, if it took generations to recognize slavery, if apologies for cultural destruction arrived long after the damage, then how courageous are we? Were we? How courageous are we as Americans, as institutions, as religious communities, as human beings? Because courage is not loud certainty. Courage is early humility. Courage is transparency before the scandal. Courage is accountability before exposure. For we all do things wrong, of course. Courage is self-examination before the accusations arise. Importantly, future generations will not measure our strength by our slogans. They will measure it by our willingness to admit error while it still costs us something. Delayed humility is pretty easy. Immediate humility is rare. And rare things require courage. Perhaps the question is not whether we are powerful. It is whether we are brave enough to look inward now rather than later. So let's look at 10 principles of humility now. 1. Admit fallibility early. No person, institution, ideology, or technology is infallible. The earlier we admit limits, the few memorials we'll need later. Humility begins with, quote, I may not have the whole truth, unquote. Number 2, correct before exposure. Integrity means correcting error before being forced to. Waiting for scandal to trigger honesty is delayed humility. Early correction prevents deep fracture. 3. Separate conviction from ego conviction. The unrefined ego insists it cannot be questioned. Humility allows conviction to remain firm without becoming rigid. 4. Transparency builds trust. Opacity breeds suspicion. Secrecy multiplies doubt. Institutions that voluntarily disclose information retain credibility. Transparency is preventative medicine. 5. Protect truth over image. Our reputations are fragile. Truth is foundational. When image is prioritized over truth, collapse follows. Choose truth, even when it's uncomfortable. 6. Invite dissent. Silencing your critics is the fastest path to blindness. Healthy systems create room for disagreement. Dissent is not disloyalty, it is diagnostic. 7. Distinguish power from righteousness. Holding authority does not equal moral superiority. History repeatedly shows that power often believes itself justified. Humility keeps power accountable. Number 8. Act while problems are small. Handle problems when they are small, before they become big problems. Fear unchecked becomes hysteria. Error unchecked becomes corruption. Delay magnifies damage. Intervene early. Number 9. Build systems that self-correct. Whether religious, civic, or technological, systems must contain mechanisms for review and revision. AI systems reflect human inputs. Human systems must reflect ethical scrutiny. Integrity must be structural, not optional. Number 10. Remember the memorial rule. Ask this question, quote, if future generations build a memorial about this moment, what will it say? If the answer is uncomfortable, act now. Do not wait 3 centuries. Again, humility is not humiliation. It is clarity without arrogance, strength without denial, leadership without defensiveness. Humility now. Why wait? Om Tat Sat. In the Hindu Yoga Dharma, remember, real yoga is Hinduism. Don't deny that fact. We end our satsangs with a shloka that's thousands of years old, just as relevant today as it was back in the times of the Brihad Aranyak Upanishad from the Vedas. The rishis said to each other and theirself, lead me from untruth to truth. Lead me from ignorance to a more enlightened state of being. And may I tap into the unifying experience within, that eternal nature, which Hindu call the Atmana, which is pure energy, pure light, and a loving peace. Inner qualities we all possess if we uncover them. In the Sanskrit of the Hindu yoga religion, we say asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya, seeking peace. But it must be a peace through strength and through justice, through humility and courage. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Humility now. Why wait? Om Tat Sat.